Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Davis from the Edge, Georgia. We are a microenterprise center located in Kennesaw, Georgia, which is about 25 miles from Atlanta. And we empower and develop entrepreneurs. So since 1998, we have provided micro-business training to help the unemployed and underemployed launch businesses to create jobs for themselves and others. We believe in economic self-sufficiency, and we help our clients make career and business choices that give them the best chance for economic mobility. Our custom programs and expertise put our clients on the path to greater wealth. We have worked with businesses at varying stages, have partnered with Voc Rehab, assisting clients in determining the feasibility of business ideas, and have collaborated with other small business resource partners. So our learning objectives for today are: 1, explaining the purpose of microenterprise centers; 2, identifying ways to partner with microenterprise centers; and 3, describing the different services and resources offered by microenterprise centers, community partners, and vocation rehabilitation services. Our agenda. So I'll begin by sharing a fictional case study with you. This will help illustrate how microenterprise centers help small businesses and entrepreneurs. It's the story of Michael and his business, Cutting Edge Kitchen Crafts. I will present his business concept, and then I will explain how a microenterprise center like ours might evaluate the feasibility of his concept, and if appropriate, support him as he gets started. After that, I will share how other community organizations and resources like vocational rehabilitation form a network of support that can support Michael on his path to self-employment. So here we are now introducing Michael of Cutting Edge Kitchen Crafts. So when Michael initially meets with his Voc Rehab counselor, he describes the difficulty he has had with some of his past employment situations. He shares his interest in woodworking. He expresses interest in focusing on it as a way to pursue self-employment. He's been making custom cutting boards and serving trays, giving them as gifts to friends and family, and the response has been very positive. He's also learned from Facebook groups that some hobbyists began to sell their boards, go into business for themselves. So he's now considering following a similar path. He said he'd like to sell locally and deliver the boards himself at first, and then expand to make other products. He had several different ideas, like selling them to restaurants, creating a website, looking at potentially shipping the boards out of state. The Voc Rehab counselor was impressed with his passion for his business idea, and then they reach out to their microenterprise partner to evaluate the feasibility of Michael's business. So a week later, Michael has now visited the Microenterprise Center. So he sits down with May from the local Microenterprise Center and again presents his business concept. He shows May images of the cutting board, the serving boards that he's made, and she's impressed with the quality. She asked him, how much would he sell them for? And how much would it cost to make them? And he's not sure. She recommends he visit the local kitchen and home stores to see what are these boards selling for. She asks him about his target market. Where might he sell them? Here he had tons of ideas. He said he planned to set up booths at local arts and craft shows, make individual sales directly to customers in the community. He also identified that he would approach restaurants and build a website to take orders. May then asked him if he considered an Etsy shop. The Microenterprise Center had several clients who were having some success selling their crafts on Etsy that enabled to turn their hobbies into businesses. She also asked him about his tools, office space, what kind of equipment he needed. He shared that he used mainly hand tools, but that there were power tools and other machines that he could buy that would enable him to increase production if he needed to. May thanked him for coming in and handed him a to-do list for the next steps. Her recommendations included research the competition and pricing through store visits, try selling some of his boards, estimate what his initial startup costs would be. Does he have all the equipment he needs right now? She encouraged him to think about what he would really need to move from hobby to business. Now, May and Jade have reconnected. So the Microenterprise Center is now going to debrief with Voc Rehab. May calls Jade at Voc Rehab to debrief her meeting with Michael. Jade then asks about her evaluation of his business concept. May shares that they took a look at several criteria when evaluating a business. First, fit to the person. Can he do it? Is the business viable? Will it sell? Is there a market? Does the client have the support needed to realize the business, make it happen? These are the exact same services that anyone that's trying to start a business, these are the same questions that would be asked of a new business owner and the same evaluation process. Fit to the person, is it viable? Do they have the support to make it happen? She shares that Michael has a quality product, that her overall impression was positive across all three of these dimensions. She asked him for more info on the competition, pricing, startup costs, and she encouraged him to try selling some boards to prove his concept. The value a Microenterprise Center provides. So what value does the Microenterprise Center bring? They help determine if self-employment is the right pathway for the individual, and in this case, in partnership with Voc Rehab. They assist with the evaluation of feasibility of the business and whether or not the client can do it. Microenterprise resources also don't provide the range of support that you would get from an employment provider, which is why the partnership with Voc Rehab is important. Unless the Microenterprise Center has a target focus for serving the disabled community, as there are some agencies that do provide that type of support to that specific community. However, if a client needs employment-related supports, with most microenterprise agencies, that would have to come from Voc Rehab or another service provider. So in this example, what was determined is that Michael's business will initially be a solopreneur. So we're looking at him starting out as self-employed. The business will be operating from his garage, where he will make the products from his location and then deliver them locally. Accessing other resources. So a couple of other helpful resources that we suggest to Michael are Facebook groups, which he appears to know about already, or other local trade groups. And we can try to pair him with mentors. From the Facebook groups, he can ask basic questions of people who are in different geographies without triggering any fears that he will completely compete with them directly. He can ask questions like what products sell best, which sizes and types, and even get input about pricing, while taking into consideration that prices vary depending on where you are. The Microenterprise Center can also connect Michael with resources like mentors for either business mentoring or trade mentors to help him within his chosen field of woodworking. There's also the community of other entrepreneurs that a center has already. This network of other entrepreneurs can serve as a source of resource and just moral support, especially for the new entrepreneur. So now we're fast forwarding 6 months later. It's been 6 months since Michael initially visited the Microenterprise Center. It does take time to get a business going. And as we check in with Michael, we find out that things are going well. He's improved his skills. He's developed 10 prototypes, versions. He sold a total of 50 boards of his main 2 products, a small cutting board and a larger one. With the help of some of the other craft entrepreneurs at the Microenterprise Center, he has opened an Etsy shop, and they have begun shipping boards within the US. Michael has been able to prove his concept. He sold a few and could lay the groundwork for a broader business because he is selling online with his Etsy store. Following up with Michael. So when we meet with Michael, we explore a few options. How can Voc Rehab support the business with funding? So this again would be a collaborative discussion with Michael, his Voc Rehab counselor, and the Microenterprise Center. What resources, supports are needed to support the business if needed? Again, why this collaborative discussion is important. Can we pair him with a mentor? Can we connect him with a peer group of other local business owners to help him sustain his business? Are there any shared production spaces where Michael might be able to make or store materials or inventory? So we decide to focus on the mentoring and the business sustainability support groups. Moving from micro to small business. In this example earlier, there's a discussion about Michael selling on Etsy. And there's an indication that at some point he would like to expand. There is a point when a business grows that they need help beyond what can be provided by a Microenterprise Center. When businesses are ready, we typically recommend that they find a small business development center, which is a local branch of the federal government Small Business Administration. My organization is a Microenterprise Center, and we happen to have a relationship with our local Small Business Development Center. And we have and still work together in supporting clients as we work with clients at varying stages of business. In Michael's case, if he was needing additional financing, looking for an SBA loan, wanting to scale or increase production. And SBDC can also provide access to training to help him improve his business and manufacturing skills as his business grows. These centers can connect you with greater financing, provide more detailed business plan support, including financial modeling that would be needed in the case of applying for an SBA loan, assisting with an SBA loan application. A business that is seeking to scale up or seek greater mass distribution, they would have a huge benefit in contacting the SBDC. It takes greater resources to finance and fulfill big orders for customers, and that's where a small business development center fits in, because they do focus more on scaling, and they have resources that can help a business move beyond the solopreneur space, if that is the right pathway, and that is been determined that that's what the small business wants to do. They can also assist with the business once it's up and running, and helping them with marketing, finance, and other HR and small business resources. Small business development centers are also typically familiar with other resources such as business incubators and where to find office space. So if the business moves from his garage to another location, they would be a great resource in identifying that. So here is a list of the many different resources to support people starting a business. Help them find their concept to getting launched. Now, more than likely at some point, there may need to be, you may need to access many of these resources on this list. So there's no one and done with some of these resources. There's not typically one resource that can cover it all for an entrepreneur. Small businesses evolve over time, and different resources are needed at different stages. But the first step to supporting someone exploring entrepreneurship is identifying the resources in your area. Get familiar with what services they provide. Get to know the point person at these agencies so a relationship is established. It provides proves to be more beneficial in the long run. In the next few slides, I'm going to highlight 4 SBA resource partners, as they typically offer services that are free or low cost. And there should be at least one of these resource partners in every state. What is important to note, that there can be limitations on how in-depth of the services that one of these centers can provide, and the staffing resources that are available. So they may be limited in the number of staff people at a given location. So on this list, we have, and I've mentioned, so of course, the original partner, vocational rehabilitation. You have your community rehabilitation providers, family and friends of the business owner. They are also important resources and supports for any new business. You also have your benefits counselors, and then the list of some of the SBA resource partners. So you have the Small Business Development Center, you have SCORE, the Women's Business Center, Office of Native American Affairs, Minority Business Development Agency, Veterans Business Outreach Center, and then you have your microenterprise development organizations And then also colleges and universities sometimes offer resources for new businesses. So first, we're going to talk about SCORE. SCORE is part of the Small Business Administration Resource Network. SCORE is the nation's largest network of volunteer expert business mentors. They're dedicated to helping small businesses plan, launch, manage, and grow. SCORE is a nonprofit organization that is driven to foster vibrant small business communities through mentoring and educational workshops. So SCORE typically focuses on mentoring. They have subject matter experts that focus specifically in different disciplines. So there will be SCORE mentors that might be a finance expert, accounting expert, marketing. They might be familiar with how to get corporate contracts or procurement. So they may also have specific industry experience as a business owner. Some of the SCORE volunteers are people that have previously owned businesses and they want to share and can share their experience in running a business. Once a business is up and running, this is a great resource for ongoing support because they have the service of mentors and being able to pair somebody up one-on-one. That would be kind of an ideal support because then that entrepreneur is getting some specific one-on-one help and they can access specific help tied to either a certain subject matter or a specific industry. SCORE mentors are volunteer, so that can be the caveat with that is that they may not always be available because they're not staffed as an employee, and they may be in constant rotation. So you may go to one SCORE center and 6 months later, there might be a different marketing expert. You can find a location, a SCORE location, by going to score.org, and you can just do a search by city or zip code, and you will be able to find your nearest location. I talked briefly a little bit about the small business development centers, but again, small business development centers are a part of the Small Business Administration Resource Network. They provide counseling and training to small businesses, including working with the SBA to develop and provide informational tools to support business startups and existing business expansion. One of the areas that they specialize in is they do provide specific help with loan packaging, procurement, contracting, getting certified as a small business to compete for government or corporate contracts, and they can support larger businesses or scalable businesses. Now, depending on the state, small business development centers may be housed at a local college or university. My organization, located here in Kennesaw, Georgia, we were on the campus of Kennesaw State University, and adjacent to our program was a small business development center. We established a partnership with them, and when we saw clients that needed higher level support or training, we referred clients to the Small Business Development Center. When they saw clients that were at the very beginning stage of business, trying to figure it out, they haven't yet started, they referred them to us. We continue to partner with the SRDC on how to best serve clients, and you'll find that as you develop these partnerships and these relationships, that some of these resources actually work together. You can go to sba.gov/local assistance, and you should be able to find your nearest small business development center in your area. The next resource I want to talk about are women's business centers. They are also a part of the Small Business Administration Resource Network. The U.S. Small Business Administration's Office of Women's Business Ownership has fostered the participation of women entrepreneurs in the economy, especially those who have been historically underserved or excluded. The Office of Women's Business Ownership reaches out to women entrepreneurs through a number of programs that are coordinated through every SBA district office. Office of Women's Business Ownership programs provide business training, counseling, access to credit and capital, and marketing opportunities, including how to procure federal government contracts. In 1988, that's when the Women's Business Center program was actually established. Today, there are women's business centers in almost every state. Some states have multiple. In Georgia, there are 3. These centers, along with the SBA district, SBA district offices, they coordinate services for entrepreneurs. So each women's business center tailors its services to the needs of its individual community. So each center does provide training, they provide counseling, they provide basic startup assistance. Their programming targets women, but men can attend workshops if they are interested in accessing services. They actually can. Most centers can assist with pre-launch and startup. So this is why this is a good to know if there's a resource like this in your community. And there's actually over 100 centers in the country. Now, usually women's business centers are not standalone entities. So you won't find a women's business center by itself unless it's an agency that just serves women. So usually a women's business center is part of a host organization. So a microenterprise agency or a micro lender might actually host a women's business center program. So usually women's business centers are a part of another agency. You can find a women's business center, again, by going to the SBA website, sba.gov, and you can put in the zip code or the city to find one that is closest to you. The next SBA resource are the Veterans Business Outreach Center program. This is also a part of the Small Business Administration Resource Network. The Veterans Business Outreach Center is designed to provide entrepreneurial development services such as business training, counseling, resource partner referrals to transitioning service members, veterans, National Guard and Reserve members, and military spouses that are interested in starting or growing a small business. The SBA has 22 organizations participating in this cooperative agreement and serving as Veterans Business Outreach Centers. So this is another resource that has a particular target and focus. They focus on veterans. They actually provide some of their services on military bases, and they provide the services to immediate family members of veterans. So they specialize in veterans that are looking to transition into civilian life, but want to become entrepreneurs. Many of the mentors, trainers that work with the VBOC centers are also veterans themselves and also own businesses. So they are able to relate as to being a former service member that later decided to become an entrepreneur. You can find, as most SBA resource partners, by going to the SBA website, sba.gov, to find a location near you. So these are just a few of the resources that are all SBA resource partners. The reason why I shared them is because they all typically offer free and/or low-cost services, and there should be at least one of these resources accessible in your state. So in the client example I shared, what kind of help a microenterprise center could provide? Many microenterprise centers are independent nonprofit agencies, so these are not necessarily a part of the Small Business Resource Network, but they can provide very specialized programs and services such as industry specific incubators. They might offer micro lending. They might offer specialized training programs. They may target specific demographics. There are agencies that offer specific entrepreneurship support for the disabled community. So you may find in your search that there are microenterprise agencies that target people that are interested in entrepreneurship that may be disabled. Easiest way to find a microenterprise development agency in the area is you can do a search on microenterprise development agencies or microenterprise development organizations. Actually doing a Google search. What you will also find is that some of these agencies have partnerships with some of the SBA resource partners that I mentioned. As I mentioned earlier, Women's Business Center programs are typically connected to a microenterprise agency. So in summary, we've now seen the story of Michael. So what can we learn from his story? Michael may have traditionally been steered towards employment, but through collaboration between Voc Rehab and the Microenterprise Center, they were able to help determine, one, assess the feasibility of his idea, get him started through prototyping and research, making products and marketing guidance, connecting him to access to resources, offering ongoing support, helping him identify what channels he was going to sell the product, and then even mapping out a strategy if his plan is to scale, being able to identify what other resources could help his business do that and potentially support him once he's actually launched. So what are our takeaways? One, let's consider self-employment as an additional option for your clients. Know what resources are available to support the evaluation of the initial concept, as well as the initial business setup stage. As I mentioned earlier, there were a list of potential resources that can be accessed to help someone get launched in a business. It would be very important. It's very important to, one, establish those relationships so you know who to ask for help, and then help navigating through the self-employment process. Become very familiar with what are the actual programs that the agencies offer. Identifying who the point person is, identifying how and how in depth are the services that the different respective agencies offer. Most of the resources that I had mentioned that are connected to the Small Business Administration, again, they are free, mostly free. However, there may be times where you're not able to get in to see someone right away. Again, because they may not be heavily staffed. So you have to kind of be aware ahead of time how you're going to access those resources, who your point person is, so that you can navigate through the process. It does take time to start a business. There is no one agency or resource that can provide everything. And it is a long-term process becoming an entrepreneur. So support is critical, and that's true for every entrepreneur. The resources do exist. You do have to know where they're located. You do have to know what they provide, how they can help, so that you know the best way to help your client in navigating this process. Again, my name is Rachel Davis, and I'm the Executive Director of The Edge, and I thank you for your time.